Killers fear them. Players want to play like them. But there's one thing we're all dying to know. Is the build average player friendly? Or is Zerb's just cracked? Let's get into it. If you've spent any time in the Dead by Daylight community, there's a good chance you've heard of Zerbs. He's known for his aggressive and incredibly altruistic playstyle, and he's always looking for a save, even the ones that seem almost impossible to pull off. And somehow, he has a habit of making those impossible plays look easy. So it's no surprise that Flashbang has become such a big part of his playstyle. Flashbang activates after you complete 40% worth of generator repairs. Once it's active, you can hop into a locker and craft a flash grenade. Drop it at just the right moment and you can blind the killer and even save a survivor from their grasp. Of course, going for those risky saves also puts you directly in the killer's path, making Dead Hard a pretty useful perk to have. Dead Hard activates after you've been unhooked or unhook yourself. While injured and running, you can use it to gain endurance for half a second, allowing you to avoid a hit that would otherwise down you. The catch is, with only half a second of endurance, your timing has to be pretty much perfect. But Dead Hard only helps when the killer is coming after you. When it's your teammate getting picked up, that's where Background Player comes in. Background Player activates for 10 seconds whenever the killer picks up another survivor. Once you start running, you get a 50% speed boost for 5 seconds, giving you the chance to quickly get into position for a save. After using it, you become exhausted for 20 seconds. Background Player can get you into position for the save, but sometimes the best way to pull one off is making sure the killer doesn't know you're there. And that's where Iron Will comes in. While injured, Iron Will reduces the volume of your grunts of pain by 100%, making it much harder for the killer to track you by sound. The only catch is that Iron Will doesn't work while you're exhausted, so you're going to have to juggle Iron Will and Background Player because Background Player is an exhaustion perk. So, with Zerb's build equipped and 10 games ahead of me, there's only one thing left to do. See if an average player can actually pull it off. Ten games later, I've chased saves, thrown flashbangs, dead-hearted for my life, and somehow, I've survived enough matches to have an opinion. So, how did Zerb's build actually score? I've broken the scorecard into 5 categories, each designed to answer one question. Is this actually a good build for the average Dead by Daylight player? Accessibility looks at how easy this build is to actually put together. Are the perks readily available, or are they locked behind characters you'll need to unlock or purchase? Fun looks at the overall experience of playing the build. Did the perks create exciting moments, keep each match interesting, and ultimately make me want to play it again? Solo queue friendly looks at how well the build performs when you're on your own. Can you constantly get value from these perks without relying on communication or coordinated teammates? Average player friendly looks at how much skill and game knowledge you need to get consistent value from the build. Can an everyday player make it work without having to play like a pro? Would I run it again looks beyond how well the build performed. After spending time with it, did I enjoy it enough to actually choose these perks again? For accessibility, I gave Zerb's a 4 out of 5. Dead Hard comes from David King, Iron Will comes from Jake Park, and Background Player comes from Nada Lira. Since all 3 are original Dead by Daylight characters, they're relatively easy to get your hands on. The only real barrier is Flashbang, which comes from the licensed character Leon Kennedy. So unless you already own Leon, you'll either need to purchase him or wait for Flashbang to appear in the Shrine of Secrets. With 3 out of the 4 perks being pretty easy to obtain, I think a 4 out of 5 for accessibility feels fair. For fun, Zerb's builds gets an easy 5 out of 5. This build constantly had me looking for my next play, whether I was hiding nearby waiting for the perfect opportunity to get a save, desperately trying to land a flashbang, or actually pulling off a perfectly timed dead hard. I was always on the edge of my seat. And even when my plays didn't work out, trying to make them happen was still incredibly fun. I was constantly engaged, constantly taking risks, and honestly just having a blast. So for fun, Zerb's build absolutely earns a 5 out of 5. For solo queue friendly, I gave Zerb's build a 2 out of 5. A big part of this build revolves around hovering nearby and putting yourself in positions for saves, which means you have to trust that your teammates are actually progressing generators while you're doing it. And in solo queue, that trust doesn't always pay off. There were several times where I spent time setting up for a save, completely whiffed it, and then realized the generators weren't moving either. At that point, we had basically accomplished nothing. I think this build could be incredibly strong with a coordinated team, but when you're relying on random teammates with no communication, there are just too many things outside of your control for me to rate it any higher. For average player friendly, I gave Zerb's build a 4 out of 5. Iron Will was incredibly easy to get value from, and Background Player made getting into position for saves much easier, even if I didn't always manage to actually pull those saves off. Dead Hard definitely had more of a learning curve. It felt pretty awkward at first, but once I started getting a feel for the timing, I was able to get some really good value out of it. Flashbang was easily the hardest part of this build for me. After 10 games and plenty of attempts, I managed exactly 0 flashbang saves. So while I think an average player can pick up this build and get plenty of value from it, actually using it to its full potential takes a level of timing and positioning that might take some practice. And finally, would I run Zerb's build again? I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. This build was some of the most fun I've had during this series so far, and even when things didn't go according to plan, I never really got frustrated with it. If anything, not getting a single flashbang save just made me want to keep practicing until I finally got one. I don't think this would become my everyday build, especially in solo queue, but when I'm in the mood to take some risks, go for ridiculous saves, and cause a little chaos, I would absolutely run it again. So, how can we remix Zerb's build to become more average player friendly? For me, the obvious place to start is Flashbang. After 10 games, I didn't manage to land a single Flashbang save, and getting consistent value out of it requires some pretty precise timing and positioning. But I don't want to take away what makes Zerb's build Zerb's build. At its core, this is still a build about putting yourself in positions to make saves. So instead of flashbang, we're bringing in Breakout. Breakout keeps that altruistic playstyle intact, but gives the average player a more forgiving way to help a teammate escape the killer's grasp. Paired with Background Player, we can quickly get into position and use that extra wiggle speed to give our teammates a better chance of getting free. We're still chasing those risky saves, we're just making them a little easier to actually pull off. So YouTube, we have one last question. Is this build actually good, or is Zerb's just cracked? For Zerb's build, he is definitely cracked. Now I want to know whose build I should put to the test next. Put your pick in the comments, subscribe if you want to see more, and until next time, good luck in the fog, baddies.